Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good to see so many of you. We're just going to wait a few minutes to allow a few more people to join us. Uh, Good to see so many people this morning. And I hope it's not too cold where you're at. Good morning. Good morning again. And I'm sure more, people will join as we move uh, into today's program. Good morning. My name is Dennis Lloyd, and along with the Enslaved Legacy History Coalition team, we, on a monthly basis, except during the uh, months of June and July, uh, excuse me, well, I'm sorry, uh, July and August, we have our regular monthly platforms where we feature individuals, societies, historical societies, uh, institutions of higher learning who present information on enslaved legacy history and that journey that took place in that. Uh, so we do it. Presentations are done on a uh, post pre-emancipation and post-emancipation. And we're very fortunate this morning to have uh, two speakers who will be presenting Margaret Seidler, and who is from Charleston, South Carolina, and also Mr. John W. Jones, who will also be presenting on uh, the work that he's done. Uh, but before we get started and we introduce our presenters of the day this morning, I'm going to turn it over to Naomi just to bring us up to date on any announcements that we have.
Good morning, everyone. So first thing I'll do is I'll just link the newsletter that I'll read announcements from so that you can follow along and click on any links if because I'll be mentioning registration and tickets, so you can follow along there. And then I'll share my screen in just a moment for the announcements. Oops. Okay. So tonight there's two very interesting online talks. So later tonight at 6 o'clock, American Ancestors and the 10 Million Names Project will be hosting Andrew Lawler to talk about his book, A Perfect Frenzy, A Royal Governor, His Black Allies, and the Crisis That Spurred the American Revolution. So here, how the full story of how Virginia turned a regional rebellion into a continental conflict, including how a Scottish earl freed enslaved Africans to fight for the British. Again, that'll be online at 6 o'clock this evening. And then at 7 o'clock, also this evening, the Rose Art Museum will be hosting artist Fred Wilson for a conversation on his latest exhibition, Reflections, which traces his decades-long examination of history, identity, and the infinite possibilities of the color Black. And all throughout the month of December, uh, the National the National Center of Afro-American Artists presents their 55th season of Black Nativity by Langston Hughes. The show will be running through December 21st, and tickets are available on their website. And finally, moving on to next year, in January, will be the inaugural MLK Boston Beloved Community Weekend. So over the course of several days, there will be several events, including a community breakfast, a day of service, as well as a tribute concert. And as always, if anybody else has any announcements or events, do share them in the chat so everyone can be aware. With that, I will pass it back to Dennis to introduce our speakers today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Naomi, as always. As you can see, there are a number of wonderful activities that are taking place in the Boston community, and we encourage you, if you're in the Boston area, to please plan to attend. Today, we're very excited to have with us Margaret Seidler, who in 2018, a native of Charleston, I should say, South Carolina. And in 2018, she made a very uh, surprising discovery that through a DNA connection, she unearthed the fact that her distant cousin was of African descent. And this revelation spurred Margaret on to pursue and uncover um, more information on that ancestral connection. And along the way, she discovered, again, some very interesting bits of information connecting the legacy of slavery to her life and to the connection to Charleston, South Carolina. And joining Margaret today will be John W. Jones, who is a freelance illustrator who has worked for 3 decades painting and illustrating and capturing the history of African American life in portrait form. So Mr. Jones will be also presenting or will offer some comments. And I am sure you'll enjoy not only his artwork, but also, as I understand, is included in Margaret's presentation also. And so with that, let me introduce Margaret and let her make her presentation. So, Margaret Seidler from Charleston, South Carolina, we will turn it over to you this morning.
Dennis Lloyd, and to all of you, thank you so much for allowing John W. Jones and I to be with you today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So I just want to tell you a story. And what I believe is that my personal story is, in fact, America's story. I'm an accidental historian. This is actually a picture of my grandmother, Marie Gruber Dandridge, who was born in Charleston in 1882, and she lived to be 100 years old. And this is a picture from Easter of 1971, where I was home from my freshman year at college at the University of South Carolina. So if y'all don't recognize that young lady in the photograph, that's me when I was 19. So my grandmother spent most of her time raising me and my other cousins. My mother was really involved in going to garden parties and tea parties and playing golf. She'd married into a family that had moved up to Charleston from Savannah. Um, she had basically, what we would say today, she married up. So my grandmother that you see, Bama, she had a eighth grade education, and her husband Tom had a third grade education. So all my life until I was 65, 8 years ago, I believed that I was from an industrial part of Charleston called the East Side. If you've been to Charleston, it is near the big Cripple River Bridge. It's at the foot of that on the Charleston side. And I will just tell you that that was nothing to brag about as a person growing up here. We just didn't talk about the fact that what was in my lifetime predominantly poor and crime ridden and mostly African American, that I had any family that had ever lived there. So, what I want you to know about something that changed me and my husband, Bob Seidler, who's on the call today. was an event that took place just a little over 10 years ago, and that is the Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church massacre, where a young white man with a goal of starting a race war murdered 9 African American human beings while they were in prayer in their church in their Bible study. My profession, where I spent 30 years, was in leadership development, conflict resolution, and managing polarizing issues. So you'll see in this picture our former Mayor Joe Riley on the right and our police chief at the time, Greg Mullen. And I had been doing work for the police chief for about 5 years. He was my client, trying to get the police department to both enforce the law and maintain community support. It wasn't one or the other, it was both. So when this massacre happened, I was tapped to lead an effort in Charleston called the Illumination Project, designed to bring police and citizens together in trust. And it was a real eye-opener for the almost 100 people who volunteered for this effort. I also was elected in I was also elected in 2014 to serve on the Charleston Airport Board and actually headed up a task force. If you fly into Charleston now, you will see this beautiful tribute to the Mother Emanuel massacre, to both the people who were killed and the survivors, and that was placed in 2017. So I tell you that background to say that as an old Charlestonian, I felt very much rooted in the Black community and felt like I was doing something to make things better for both races. So all of a sudden, I get a phone call in 2018, as Dennis referenced, from a DNA test that I had taken years before, and that revealed my cousin, Pearlstein Simmons of St. Augustine, Florida, who had left me a note about a year before saying she wanted to get in touch, that we were, in fact, connected through DNA. And so I called them, having a high sensitivity for African American and European American relationships. And they asked me to trace my family history if I knew anybody who'd been in this country for a really long time. And I said, well, the oldest person I knew was my grandmother, whose picture I showed you. So I went back to our family Bible, and this is literally the handwriting of my grandmother, which I found in 1983 when she died. If you'll look at it, though, it says we've got people from England, we've got people from New York, we've got somebody who was Chief Justice in Canada, people graduated from Yale. I just have to tell you that when she died in 1983, we were raised in the South not to be related to or friends with anybody above the Mason-Dixon line. So I had never looked at these documents for 35 years. So I started Googling or internet searching some of the names and thinking that these ancestors of mine were up in New York City, and they were. Lo and behold, though, they came to Charleston, South Carolina in 1758, 100 years before I had any descendants here. That makes me 8th generation, not 5th generation Charlestonian. And this is the first thing that I saw online, which is from our South Carolina Historical Society's archives. And here's an abstract from the letters of my 5th great grandfather, from an actual letter they have in their collection from 1775. And it talks about him bringing immigrants into this country and hundreds of slaves to Charleston from Africa. You can only imagine my shock that I had anything to do with the slave trade. All my life, I thought I was from working class people who were exempt. Lo and behold, I was not. And so what was great was historians from around the world came to help me prove what I was looking at. So this is one of many that Dr. Nick Radburn, who works at the University of Lancaster in England, helped me find on actual newspaper ads where my family was bringing captive Africans into the country. So as I went on to find out who is my cousin Pearlstein, you can see her down here on the bottom right of the chain, and I'm down here, Margaret Thomas Thorne Seidler. And it shows that our common ancestors was in fact an extremely wealthy, Yale-educated judge from New York City, who not only graduated Yale, I have since determined that he was on the founding board of trustees of Princeton. So just imagine, all my life, I thought I was from uneducated people, and my family had gone not only to Yale, but had founded Princeton. So I started looking at slavery up north because that was something I never really thought about. And just a year ago, in November, Dr. David Blight from Yale was down here speaking on his most recent book, Yale and Slavery. He was at the Charleston Literary Festival, and he shared the name of a founding benefactor, Philip Livingston from New York City, who was in fact the biggest in the slave trade there for 3 generations. I sat there in my seat in the theater and I almost passed out because I knew the name Livingston. I knew that that name was in the Smith family tree in New York City, and in fact, it was. So I'm related to 3 generations of transatlantic slave traders from New York City. So as I studied about slavery in the North, not realizing that it really existed, that New York City didn't actually abolish slavery till 1827, and the state of New York abolished it in 1841, saying that non-residents could stay up to 9 months with enslaved people. Now you think about it, most people that I've talked to think that slavery was in the South, but in fact, 1841 is just a couple of decades in the run-up to the Civil War. I looked up and found out that Connecticut didn't abolish slavery until 1851. And then I looked at how the wealth of J.P. Morgan Chase was in fact created through using the enslaved as collateral. And here are just one of many ads that I found in the New York Daily Advertiser in the time period that I was studying in the early 1800s, where someone was being actually sold through the newspaper. So once I finished exploring my New York connections, I was looking more and more at what was going on long-term in Charleston. And so I found a 4th great grandfather. His name is William Payne, P-A-Y-N-E. He went bankrupt here in Charleston. He's Irish. He came here from 1786 with Major Pierce Butler. If any of you know Ansi Bailey's work in the 1619 Project, The Weeping Time. This is the same Pierce Butler who brought William Payne here from Ireland. After a few years, he went bankrupt in 1803. He hid his assets that his wealthy wife had. And he went back to a full-time, more lucrative line of work, and that's the domestic slave trade. These are people actually not coming off the ships. These are people living and raising their families here. These are the number of people that I've documented thus far that my 4th great grandfather sold here on Broad Street in Charleston, South Carolina, over his 30-year career from 1830 to 1834. Through estate sales, slaveholders would die, their property would have to be sold. That would include their people. People would have mortgage debts. People would owe property taxes to the city. So if you owed your property, you didn't pay your property taxes on your house or your business, the city would send over the sheriff to come grab a couple of your enslaved people and then have William Payne sell them on the auction block, with Payne getting a percentage and the city being made whole for the property tax that in fact you owed. All of these are from historical newspaper ads. This is what I did in the summer of 2018, and with the help of historians and the Charleston County Public Library, and News Bank, Redax. I was able to document all of these, and all of these are documented for people to be able to find, hopefully, their ancestors by first names. So as I was in this journey, growing up in a segregated environment here, I felt sorry. I felt sympathy for people of African descent. They didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have toys. They didn't have country clubs. They didn't have near what I had, and I felt sorry for them. But when I went through this process, specifically after the Mother Emanuel massacre and through this research, it turned to empathy, which is a much deeper feeling, which to me is a key feeling for doing something positive about where we are today as a country. It softened people's hearts, and they said, you're onto something, Margaret. You're onto something that nobody else has been onto before. And so I said, I'm not afraid. I've worked in conflict resolution 30 years. I've got to go into this. I can't hide the truth. I've got to share it. So what a cadre of us have worked together to do now for the last 5 years is to acknowledge historical realities and to take action today to make a better future for each of us and for all of us. I know I can't change the past. I didn't do what William Payne did. I didn't do what John Torrance did. What I can change is what people learn about it and what they do about it today. So one of the first things that my husband Bob and I did was we worked with Dr. Bernie Powers, professor emeritus of history at the College of Charleston here. And we got the current owner of the Broad Street building where my family was selling thousands and thousands of people to agree to put a private bronze historical marker on their building, documenting that people were being sold in the same buildings that are used commercially today. This was a first for modern Charleston to realize that. We thought that the slave auctions, slave sales only took place in an outside market and on an old slave market that's owned and operated by the city of Charleston. That couldn't be anything farther from the truth. This is one of my 1,100 newspaper ads on the left, where my family was selling people, and it's a family of Negroes. They can either be purchased for cash or 90 days, same as cash. It's a wench being advertised for sale who's about 33. That means wench means she's a childbearing age, so she's more valuable, and her 4 children. And if you look at the very bottom of the ad, they may be seen at our office between the hours of 11 to 2 for a few days. So I asked the historians, were they just like sitting around the first floor with William Payne raising his family on the second and third floors? Were they sitting in the office? And they said, no, Margaret. They had a holding pen. These people were behind bars. You'll notice that the ad says 28 Broad. It's today's 34 Broad. We had a historical deeds researcher actually prove that. So everything that we've done has been documented. I thought that I would feel better once that marker went up in 2021. And I didn't feel better. So I hired an African-American genealogist, Robin Foster, out of North Carolina, to find people who were descended from people that were enslaved by my family. And thanks to her, I sent an email to a funeral home and got a response from this young woman who happened to be South Carolina State Senator Mia McLeod, whose family was actually enslaved for 2 generations by my family. Another thing that we did was Polly Shepard, who's one of the Mother Emanuel Church survivors. My husband Bob, along with our local newspaper reporter and photographer, went on a 5-day civil rights road trip during a quick blink in the middle of COVID, and we walked the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So it is something that I really recommend, that if you do it, that you take someone with you that doesn't look like you. We put a second marker at 24 Broad Street for the largest. We had a graduate student who found this at the College of Charleston for the biggest sale advertised in United States history. for 770 people in 4 days. And one of the descendants of this slave, this is not my family, this is a different slave trading family, that actually paid the $3,000 for the marker to be placed on this building. So all of this happens with a team. Bob and I have a longtime friend, Chuma, who owns an art gallery here. And one of his biggest artists is John W. Jones, who did a book 25 years ago called Confederate Currency, The Color of Money, where he takes scenes from the Confederate dollar bills or bills and brings to life the engravings. And what Mr. Jones says, if you don't believe that the Civil War was about slavery, he'll show you because it's on the money. So Chuma connected us, and I knew Mr. Jones' work through Polly Shepherd. So as a white person, that's probably pretty unusual. It wasn't unusual because I have been so steeped in the African American community now. So what Mr. Jones has graciously done is he has taken a collection of the ads where my family was selling people, and this is our book, Payne-ful, obviously named after William Payne, and it was a painful business. And it's Charleston's journey to truth, although I believe what we've learned since the book has been out for 18 months, that this is really America's journey to truth. So what Mr. Jones has done is he has brought the people to life. He has humanized them. This has never been done before. There are actually 34 paintings in the book. Here we see a brick molder who built Charleston. If you've been to Charleston and you admire our beautiful buildings, this is the man who built the building. This is what he used. These are all historically accurate, as historians said grace over every single one. Here I'll show you this ad where 3 generations are for sale. And I particularly like to show this to people of predominantly European American descent because I want them to think about being grandparents or parents and having grandchildren and children. And here's a painting that Mr. Jones brought to life. And you can see the grandmother's got a corncob pipe. And trust me, living in Charleston, growing up, all the African-American women smoked corncob pipes. And just imagine that this family is going to be separated for the rest of their lives. In this case, because their slaveholder passed away. We also use these paintings in our art exhibition as a way to tell history. This is about Sally Seymour. This is a person who was enslaved, who had been trained by Sally Seymour. She is a free woman of color who was a restaurateur and trained many chefs in Charleston. Not many people know about Sally Seymour. More and more people do now. This is a picture of Mr. Jones and me in March of this year. I know, Dennis, that you've been to the International African American Museum in
Yes.
Charleston.
Mhm.
As a Charlestonian, I think that this museum has changed the stories of history in Charleston in a fundamentally positive way. We are now getting a complete truth. So that's Mr. Jones and me at the book signing after our talk. And so just to give you a quick update, and then I want to turn it over to John W. Jones and let him talk about his experience in this journey, is that we are so grateful that we won the Phyllis Wheatley Book Award in June, the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society Book Award in October. Yes, I'm going to read this next one and believe it, it's true. The South Carolina Governor's Award in the Humanities 2025. There is hope. We've had 7 art exhibitions in addition to the book. And again, all that Mr. Jones has donated. We've been on PBS with Dr. Ben Chavis. Our book has sold over 4,700 copies. Close to 6,000 people have attended talks. We've had an African cemetery where descendants could not get in behind a gated community, now open to them, cleaned up and anointed. A decorative brick wall is being placed along with a marker honoring those who have been nameless all these generations. If you don't know what the Charleston Receipts Cookbook is by the Junior League, look it up because coming in March, they sold 855,000 copies. Dr. Bernie Powers and African American chef Kevin Mitchell have rewritten the introduction, given the credit for this Junior League 75-year-old cookbook, did credit where it was due as to whose recipes those were. And then the last thing I'll say is that we just recently got invited, Bob and I, to fly to Utah and to talk to the staff at Ancestry.com because they believe they can use the ads that are in the back of my book and AI to find the descendants of those enslaved and sold by my family. Mr. Jones, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate that fine introduction. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is John W. Jones. Margaret and I met a few years ago through Mr. Chuma at Gallery Chuma in Charleston. He introduced me to Margaret, and she talked to me some about her project, and we decided to illustrate the book for her because I thought it was a very important book that we need to pay attention to. So she would send me the ads, and I would read the ads and interpret them and do paintings based on what I found in the ads. And then I'd make a sketch and I'd send it back to Margaret, and Margaret and her historians would look at it for authenticity. And once it was decided that everything was okay, then I went ahead and did the paintings. And this went on for about a year or so, and we did about 50 some odd paintings during that time. And but that was a very interesting project, and I really enjoyed doing that. That led, well, that didn't lead to it, but The Color of Money is another project that I did called The Color of Money: Images of Slavery Found in Confederate and Southern States Money. They were designed to actively affirm and aggressively promote the slave labor system of their plantation economy. And I painted over 300 paintings based on that, and this was published in the New York Times, CNN, Time Magazine, NPR, ETV, and on and on and on and on. Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and many, many other newspapers and social outlets. Are there any questions that anyone has about the?
Why don't you tell me about how you painted the faces?
Well, a lot of these images I decided to use friends and relatives from around the neighborhood, and some of them I just made up myself, and some of them I had my wife take pictures of me doing some of these things, and I took those things and put them all together into paintings. That's basically how all this came about.
Excellent. Excellent.
Any other questions?
I'm sure am I on speaker, Marike? Yes. I'm sure we will during the course of what we generally do is we invite individuals to list their questions in the chat. But first of all, let me say thank you very much for the information as we continue this discussion around not only Margaret's history, but also your paintings, your illustrations over the years, Mr. Jones. Let me ask you a question about your artwork in relationship to the book. And now the book, I would encourage, we do have a number of wonderful authors who present on our platform. We would encourage you to purchase this book. It is very colorful and full of interesting pieces of history, and that's available on our website and also on the recommendations that we have for books that will be going forward And the link, as Naomi put in, the link to purchase Payne-ful Business is going to be on our website, and we'll send it out also. But the point that I did want to make, another one, is that we are in the process of trying to bring this exhibition to the Boston, Cambridge community. And we will, as soon as we work out some details, that would be, we'll have that presentation in Boston. Finances also are important when we do things like this. So we encourage any of you, once we who may want to support an effort like this, to reach out to us. But the work, you've been doing this for how many years now, Mr. Jones?
Well, I've been an illustrator since I was got out of the military in 1978.
Okay.
I've been an illustrator in the Washington D.C. area,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that for about 10 years. I was a freelance artist and illustrator. Then I moved back to my hometown, Columbia, South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and where I worked at the University of South Carolina as a senior cartographer for the Earth Sciences and Resources Institute. And
Mm-hmm.
then I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, where I met Mr. Chuma. And from there, we've been had a relationship for about 30 some years. We worked together to sell my work for one thing, and then and put all these projects together.
Wow. Wow, that is very interesting. Um, the journey continues, as you say. We we do have a number of questions in the chat, which maybe Naomi can bring up, and we can entertain some of the questions that have been asked. I do want to point out we have the two very renowned genealogists in our audience this morning. I do know that Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy from the University of Virginia is here. I thought I saw Shelley. And also, who else did I see? A genealogist. Well, we do have, but Dr. Murphy has been a very avid genealogist in tracing the legacy and history of slavery. Um, but Naomi, could you list the questions that may appear in the chat? Is there any way we can do that so we can?
Yep,
Yeah.
so I can start moderating for the Q&A session if we're
Okay.
ready.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to say it looks like based on the comments, there's several people who've actually been in person to see the exhibit and see the paintings in person. So, um, and all had really great feedback and that it's beautiful. So, hopefully we'll be able to bring it to Cambridge as well so more people can enjoy it. So for our first question, Catherine asks, Margaret, I'm curious about the number of people sold to traders, shipping people for sale in New Orleans. What are your thoughts?
So when I say I'm an accidental historian, I mean it. I am very much a historian with a very narrow expertise. So I don't really know anything about New Orleans. Maybe someone else that's on the call can help me with that. That is not really anything that I've studied. I've just studied from 1758 to 1835 in Charleston. I know that there was a lot of westward migration. I have not, I'm 73, so I have not, if somebody's young and wants to help me, I'll take a raised hand. I have not gone and like looked at bills of sale for each of these 1,100 ads to see where the people went. I mean, that would be a good doctoral process. So, anybody else want to help me on that?
Okay. Uh,
Sorry.
all right. It's no problem. Uh,
I
next,
can move on to the next. We have a couple more questions. And then people are also welcome to use the raise hand feature in addition to the chat to ask questions as well. And this is from Shelley Viola Murphy. A question for Margaret. As you are finding this information about your family, how did others in your family react? Were they supportive or were they wanting this to remain quiet?
Did you say that was from Shelley?
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, let me just say this before I answer it. Shirley Murphy has been on this journey with us for years. She is, this is such a collective effort. That's why I have faith that we're going to bring people together. To answer Shelley's question, my family has been totally supportive of this. I've only lost one friend, and it was a lifelong friend, and I lost her early on in this, and she has taken a really different path. On the other hand, I have a friend who's known me since the day I took my first breath, Nancy Wilson, and she and I have very different views about how to run a country, and we know that we feel that way, and in spite of it, we don't discuss it. We remain close. She's come to our art exhibitions when we had one down in Beaufort, which is where she lives now. They have bought multiple books. I think that the personal story is what transcends division, and I think that I haven't met anybody. Again, we've talked to like 6,000 people. I haven't met anybody yet who's against other human beings from here actually remaining human. I just haven't seen that yet, not on the local level. And I feel like with the noise at the national level that the local message needs to be strong. It needs to be visible. So yeah, I've had support from people I would never have imagined supporting me. And I found new white cousins in Charleston, people I had grown up with. They all have supported it except for one who just said he wasn't interested. And, that's a choice. Even the descendants of other slave traders, like that big sale for 770 people, they're actually what we call in Charleston aristocratic, where obviously I'm not. They have been supportive. So I think that when it gets down to the human level and the fact that this is a personal story, it's not a means to try and make anybody feel bad. And then you have the art bring the story to life in the way that it's never been brought before. I think it's an unbeatable pairing. I really do. I mean, I think that Mr. Jones and his gracious collaboration has made all the difference in the world for this story to be received by people who might not have been so open to receiving it prior to this.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a comment. I put a link in for the slave ship manifest regarding Catherine's question.
Thank you. God, you're so good, Shelley.
Hello,
I'm going to
Shelley.
take you wherever I go.
For those of you who are not, who might have missed, Dr. Murphy presented on the Slave Legacy History Coalition platform last year, or was it 2 years ago? Last year. So you can capture Dr. Murphy's presentation on YouTube, where all of our presentations will be, or are, and will, including today's Margaret and Mr. Jones' presentation. Excuse me, Naomi, do you have any more questions?
I do. And then I just want to point out a comment by Brian Jones. He also pointed out the Schoenberg Center for Research in Black Cultures, another resource, I think, pertaining to Catherine's question. Barbara Brown had a question as well. And Barbara, I know you had your hand up, so I'll read your question, but if you wanted to elaborate on it, I welcome you to do that. But Barbara says, I'm so very pleased by the means you're you're using to teach and show people about slavery, especially about enslaved people and individuals. How did you come to choose this approach?
How did I come to choose this approach? Thank you so much, Barbara. I have, like I said, I've been working in conflict resolution and polarizing issues for close to 30 years, well, 25 years. And so the approach that I use, that I never say I use, is in fact a both and approach. And it's one where when I was working in polarizing issues or trying to get a group to change, you can't push people to change. All you get back when you push is you'll get what? Resistance, right? And so what I was trained in by Dr. Barry Johnson, who's out of Michigan, many years ago when I lived in Minneapolis. I believe my learning partner, Yvonne Cheek, is here from Minneapolis on the call, so I'm glad to see she's with me. Is that if you want somebody to hear you, if you want somebody to be open to something that might not be particularly easy, then you've got to start in a gentle way and a personal way. So one of the things that we learned in this field called organization development was that you had to use the self, SELF, the self, as the instrument of change. And so that's all I really know how to do is to use myself. And I did not sign up for this assignment. The assignment presented itself to me. And I just knew that I'd been getting prepared from using my skills to do something that's not very easy. So I love doing this. And then, we've known Bob, my husband and I have known Chuma for, gosh, 25 years. And Chuma came to my 70th birthday party, which I had at a brand new restaurant that a friend of ours had opened on Broad Street, right across from the marker, the historical marker that I showed you. And we bought out the whole restaurant and we intentionally invited half people of African American and half European American. And so then I made a talk that day, that here we were 4 generations later, across the street from the very spot in the place where it happened, where my family sold thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And there we stood, and I guess I was 73, well, I don't know what you cut 3 years ago, when it was my 70th birthday. And I stood there and I said, look, times do change. We change. We're sitting here across from that marker. And so who was one of the people at the birthday party, my 70th birthday party? Chuma. And so it was a few months later that he texted me and said he didn't have any idea that I just signed a book contract like 2 weeks before. He said, oh, Margaret, I've got an artist who's interested in your newspaper ads. And I'm one of these people, I'm kind of quick to respond. And I went, oh, sure, I'll be happy to show him. And then I texted Chuma back and I said, I'm not showing an artist how to get in that database. That is not a good use of an artist's time. Let's meet. And so John Jones drove down from Columbia, which is like a 2-hour drive, and we met at the South Carolina History Room. And we started just going through the ads because I had a database of 1,100. And we just sat there for about an hour. We were all just kind of looking at it and looking at it. And finally, I think it was Chuma said, oh, you know what, John? He said, you could take the ads and you could bring the people to life. Because I think Mr. Jones was kind of interested in wharfs at that point, right? So I wanted to paint wharfs. And I said, well, all I got is people, right? And then so we started like doing this email thing every day. And then I think that, I don't know if you want me to share this, I must share it anyway. I don't think you got a whole lot of sleep for about 7 months. I mean, this was familiar, right? I mean, this was familiar to you, right, John?
Yes, of course. I'm absolutely familiar.
I mean, we were
Yes,
at the
I didn't
first
get very
art
much
show
sleep, but
and somebody said, "What was it like painting this?" And he goes, "Oh, it was familiar." So tell everybody, how was it familiar for you?
well, in many ways, I've been doing this all my life, and I've been an illustrator for a long time, and doing the color money was certainly an adventure in itself. And this project came along, and I thought about it, and as I thought about it, I said, this is pretty much sort of like the color money because they can't refute this because it's on
Right.
their money and it's on their ads, so
Right.
they can't refute it. So that's what motivated me to get involved with that project.
I finally had to call you and say, "You've got to stop."
Yes,
The book
we had to go
publisher,
roll
when
going
I
back
told the book publisher that John Jones, and she knew who John Jones was, wants to do this, it changed the books. The type of book we had, went to a horizontal book, more of a small coffee table book rather than a book. I mean, they changed the contract. I mean, they did everything to make it happen. She goes, "Now you can only have 20 paintings in the book." And I said, "Okay." And so when I submitted it in December of 23, it had 34. And I just didn't say anything because I thought, how can this young white woman who's as sweet as pie, how could she possibly make a choice? So guess how many got published? 34, right? And I think that the other thing is that it is undeniable. And in the spirit, working with Mr. Jones was just like, I don't like writing. I like public speaking. I don't like writing. So don't ask me why I did this, except for I had to. But doing this project with John Jones made it like a team effort. And so it made it fun. I mean, I play competitive bridge on Mondays, and I check my phone during, changing tables, and there would be a text from John Jones, and it would be a sketch with the ad. And I mean, I would almost just fall out. I mean, these ads are really personal to me. These aren't just words on a page. I mean, these ads have been with me for 5 years, 5.5 years. And to see this man, John W. Jones, somehow bring these people who never had a voice, who never had a picture, to bring them to life and for people to see slavery. At our first exhibition here in Charleston in December a year ago, 2 years ago, um, friends of mine that I grew up and they come up, they go, "Margie," which was my nickname, Margie. Um, they're crying. They said, "We lived here all our lives. We thought we understood slavery. We didn't understand it until we could see them." It changed their hearts.
Well, that is very, very interesting and sobering insight there, Margaret. And and John, let me ask a question of Mr. Jones, and thank you for that, for sharing that, Margaret. Um, it is very powerful. Mr. Jones, is your artwork available for sale, or is it just, in the original form or illustrations or uh,
find my artwork at Gallery Chuma in Charleston, South Carolina. Uh,
okay.
some of the paintings are for sale. Chat with Mr. Chuma and he'll work out the details.
All right. Very well put.
We haven't sold anything in the exhibition.
hmm
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Uh,
I mean, we're still traveling. We're in Fort Lauderdale right now. One
mhm.
thing that you might want to ask Mr. Jones about is his work with Dr. Edifields Black and that book that they
Ah,
did together.
oh, okay. Yes, Dr. Edifield Black was a presenter 2 or 3 months ago on our presentation. And maybe you can share some insight into her work and your connection.
Well, she approached me some years ago about doing a cover for her book, and we got together and collaborated on that project. And I did a cover for a book, and yeah, it came out turned out really well. And I got a chance to meet Dr. Edifield Black. She came to Columbia. I think she had some relatives live here in Columbia as well. So we had lunch together and talked about the illustrations on the book, and that's how all that came about.
Hmm. Now, she just won a Pulitzer Prize, if I'm not mistaken. Was it for this particular book that you're involved
I'm
with?
not I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I have to talk to her about and see which book they were referring to there. But I'm not
Okay.
sure. But I did do a cover for her book though.
Okay. All right. Yeah. She just won a Pulitzer Prize, if I'm not mistaken, in September or October, whenever they were announced. That's
Yes, I read
very,
something about that. Yes.
yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Um, your books and your work, both Margaret and John, they're available on certainly on sites. We do have a link, if I'm not mistaken, Naomi, which will connect people uh, to the purchase point of your books. The color of the color of money. I would like, certainly like to read. I need to purchase that myself. So that's you know, something I'm looking forward to. I would also, well, let me say that thank you very, very much for this very, very compelling and interesting um, presentation today. It certainly unearthed, the connection between slavery, preservation, and from the past to where we are right now in terms of some attitudes. One of the interesting points as we begin to conclude, is that most of us that are on here, I believe, uh, are from the North originally, and there are a lot of misconceptions that slavery, occurred only in the South and it wasn't involved in the North, to the degree certainly that it was in the South. But we do like to make those connections between slavery is slavery, preservation is, preservation, and um, and we like to use this platform to introduce people to subjects and information they may not have known about American history. So it's important, and we thank you for sharing this American history this morning. And we will certainly be in touch. And thank you very much. This was a great presentation, certainly,
Thank you.
and we greatly appreciate it. We will hopefully will continue our relationship as we move down the road to hear about other events and activities that you're doing. I would also like to encourage anyone that's here two things. One, if you are interested in making a presentation and you have information that connects us to this journey of history, of American history, that you contact us, and we'd be very interested in sharing your stories on our particular site. So you can contact Naomi on our site, www.slavelegacyhistorycoalition.org, and you will be able to leave a note, which we'll get back in touch with you about. Again, thank you very much. We would like to wish all of you a happy holiday, and this upcoming in a new year. This is we are going into our fifth year, and that is a monumental for us in terms of all of the people who have contributed to our you know to this platform, and who have shared information. 5 years is quite a journey. And time has gone by very quickly. We've met a number of wonderful people, and we've developed friendships which we cherish, and we look forward to building on as we move along this journey. So I wanted to thank all of you on behalf of the Slave Legacy History Coalition team and its membership. Certainly, thank you for all that you've done to support us, and thank you today, Margaret and John, for your wonderful presentation. And your presentations will be included on the YouTube site. Naomi, is that correct?
Yes, so people will get a notification once that's available.
Excellent. And so please do, share the presentation and go back and listen to it again, because it was a wonderful presentation. So again, thank you very much. we do wish you all a happy holiday season and a wonderful new year. And we thank you for your support, and we look forward to continuing this journey in 2026. And in January, we have Frank Bowles, I think,
We have Richard Bowles. He'll be
Richard Bowles.
speaking on his book, Dividing the Faith, which is about segregated churches in the North, excuse me.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Naomi. And we encourage you all to join us, and that will be in the second week of January at 10:30 a.m. We will be here. Until then, we wish you all a happy holiday again, and thank you for supporting, the Slave Legacy History Coalition. And we look forward to you purchasing John Jones's and and Margaret Seidler's book, and all of the presenters that we've had this year who've written wonderful books. So again, thank you for your support. Have a wonderful holiday and stay safe. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.